Hello. So I've been trying to make this video for like a week now. This is like attempt 500 at filming it, and just a lot of issues, a lot of technical difficulties. Then allergy season's hit, and then everything's clogged up now. Great, great, just great. I say we blame HP. They don't want me to make this video. Anyway, this is the HP X2 11 Detachable Chromebook, and this is my full review of it. Full disclosure, I bought this device with my own personal funds. All opinions expressed in this video are my own personal opinions. Nobody has paid for or sponsored this video, and no entity or person other than yours truly has reviewed this video, the contents of this video, prior to its posting on the Octillionth Tech YouTube channel. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the device. The particular model of the HP X2 11 that we will be reviewing today comes with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7C compute platform, 8GB of RAM, and 64GB of internal eMMC storage, with an option to expand storage through the microSD card slot. It also comes with an 11-inch 2160 by 1440 touch display. The model I got comes with an included removable magnetic kickstand, a detachable keyboard, and a wirelessly chargeable USI Pen. This particular model is the non-LTE version. At Best Buy, this model is priced at $599. Looking at the tablet portion first, the HP X2 11 comes with a very nice aluminum body with a sandblast finish. This makes for a very premium looking and feeling tablet. The texture on the back feels nice to the touch, and on top of that, the overall build quality of this thing is very solid. Nothing about the tablet feels cheap, and that just makes for a very comfortable holding experience. Now, speaking with the tablet facing me like this, the bottom of the tablet has 5 pogo pins that will wirelessly attach to the detachable keyboard. The right side of the tablet is the side used to wirelessly charge the included USI Pen. The USI Pen magnetically attaches to this area here, and leaving it in place wirelessly charges it. The top of the device features the microphone as well as the power button. The power button also serves the role of a fingerprint reader. The left side of the tablet comes with a slot for the microSD card tray, volume keys, and 2 USB-C ports. Both USB-C ports can be used for charging as well as be used to connect external storage. It can also be used for other USB-C related use cases, and yes, the USB-C port can be used to connect to an external display. The screen on this thing is really nice, the colors really come through, and the screen gets really bright. According to the specs sheet, it says it can get up to 400 nits brightness, and frankly, in my experience, that seems pretty accurate. For media consumption, the screen is just perfect. I binge watched a bunch of shows and read a few ebooks with this thing, and it's been a blast. One thing that I've noticed with the screen though is that the screen is naturally more on the warmer side, meaning that the tablet naturally has a little bit more of a yellowish color temperature going for it. This probably isn't a big deal for most people, but I know that some people have preferences when it comes to the color temperature of their screens. I myself prefer screens that are a little bit cooler, meaning screens that have a little bit more of a bluish color temperature going for it. I don't know how well it will come through here, but as reference and as comparison, I placed the HP X2 11 next to Lenovo Duet. The Lenovo Duet naturally has a cooler screen, so if it comes through on camera, I think you'll notice that the HP X2 11 does look like it has a warmer screen. To make this very clear, this is nothing against the display itself, it's just something that I've noticed. The tablet on its own weighs around 1.25 pounds or 0.57 kilograms. It makes it very easy to hold with one hand. It makes for a very nice tablet experience. With all the included accessories attached to the tablet though, the tablet gets to be around 3 pounds or 1.36 kilograms. It definitely is a bit on the heavier side with everything attached to it. Speaking of included accessories though, they're not that great. The back cover magnetically attaches to the back of the tablet. Now this is a very strong magnet, so once it's attached, it's attached. Like you're gonna have to put some really purposeful force to pull the magnetic cover off of the tablet. Which is nice, arguably, because it would be bad if the back cover would just, randomly come off or whatnot. So in that sense, this is nice. On the other hand, though, the hinge, basically what allows the back cover to turn into a kickstand, this hinge is really sticking out, and when you lay this tablet out with the back cover onto a desk, it makes for a very uneven, wobbly experience, which can be especially problematic if you have the tablet laid out on a desk and you're trying to use a stylus on it. Not to mention that the fabric around the hinge on my model is already starting to wear out. Throughout like 99% of the time that I've owned this device, it's basically just been on a desk. Like, we should not be seeing this kind of wear and tear at this very early stage with that sort of light use. It's very disappointing. The detachable keyboard is also Well, let's start with the positives. The keys on the detachable keyboard are fairly responsive. The trackpad is glass and wide. It's sort of a nice experience to use as long as you're using it on a hard surface. I made a separate video on this, but when using the keyboard on a soft or uneven surface like that of your lap, there's this issue where placing your palms on either side of the trackpad makes the trackpad make a clicking sound. I get that that's not an issue that will affect everyone, but it will certainly affect certain users, and it's worth mentioning here. And because of the size of the HP X2 in general, the keyboard on this thing did feel a little bit cramped, and long-term use, like spending hours and hours typing things out on it, was definitely a little bit uncomfortable. Speaking about those accessories though, I of course did not forget about the included USI Pen, which in my experience was fine. One of the first things I did when I started using the USI Pen was turn on the Stylus Tools taskbar in the Chrome OS settings. This gave me a nice overlook as to how charged the USI Pen was and gave me shortcuts to USI related apps. It's a nice tool that Chrome OS has built into its OS, and it's a sign that they are trying to make the USI Pen experience as good as possible. Another sign that they're trying to integrate the USI Pen experience into Chrome OS really comes in the form of Google's new app, Cursive, which I did try out when I first started using the USI Pen to take some notes, and the experience in this app was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine for a relatively new app. It definitely did feel a bit buggy. On top of using it as a note taker though, I also tried to use the USI Pen to draw pictures in various apps like Google Keep, and the experience was also fine on that front as well. As one can tell, my career as an artist is not going anywhere anytime soon. To be blunt, the USI Pen really isn't meant for me. I'm not the type of person who takes notes with a stylus. I'm not the type of person who draws a lot on the tablet. Like, I'm just not one of them. So do take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. I'm not the main user that this is trying to appeal to. But the impression I got while trying to use the USI Pen in Chrome OS was that this is still a very, very new thing that they're trying to implement in Chrome OS right now. And like all new things, there is a bit of glitchiness and clunkiness with the overall USI experience. Things like palm rejection, for example, would just randomly disappear and randomly come back as I would be, as I would be writing out notes or drawing pictures or whatever. And that was always a little bit surprising. There was also a bit of lag here and there depending on what I was trying to do. So it looks like Chrome OS is really still figuring it out. And as of now, USI Pen on Chrome OS is sort of like a work in progress. All right, let's talk about the speakers that you can find on either side of the tablet display here. It's not great. I know I said they were pretty good in my initial impressions video, but I forgot to take into consideration the fact that my place is relatively quiet, so even quiet speakers can sound pretty good in this environment. When I compared it with the Lenovo Duet and the Pixelbook Go though, yeah, the speakers are definitely on the quieter side. So if you need really good speakers from your tablet device, then the HP X2 is probably not for you. And while I wish we could simply plug in headphones and forget about the speakers here, it's not possible to do that because there is no 3.5mm headphone jack on this tablet device. Now, it's still possible to connect headphones up to the HP X2 You can simply utilize one of these, a USB-C to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter. You can use one of these to connect up wired headphones. Another workaround for the bad speakers on the HP X2 is utilizing the Bluetooth 5.0 that comes with the device. Connecting Bluetooth earbuds and Bluetooth speakers to this thing is very easy. I personally have been using my Sony WI-XB400 Bluetooth earbuds with this device, and it's just been a very good experience overall. Speaking of Bluetooth, I tried connecting other non-audio related Bluetooth accessories to the HP X2 and the experience was pretty good. I had no problems whatsoever pairing Bluetooth accessories to the HP X2 Bluetooth on this thing is solid. Finally, physical hardware-wise, let's talk about the camera and the internal mic in this device. They're both underwhelming. The image quality you get from the 5-megapixel front-facing camera looks a bit like this, and the internal mic sounds like this. It's fine for Zoom and Skype, I guess, but really underwhelming stuff. The 8-megapixel rear camera image quality looks a bit like this. It's fine for scanning documents, I guess, but nothing more than that. Enough about physical hardware though, let's talk about performance now and start with some benchmarks. For benchmarks, I started off by running some of the benchmark apps that you can get from the Google Play Store. Looking at how things scored on the CPU side, I ran Geekbench 5. The X211 got a single core score of 597 and a multi-core score of 1674. These scores are marginally better than the Duet, which on my try got a single core score of 301 and a multi-core score of 1429. On the GPU side, I ran the 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme to test OpenGL, and the X211 got a score of 2633. The same test results in a score of 1743 on the Lenovo Duet, so once again, the X211 is marginally doing better than the Lenovo Duet. Next, I moved on to run the web browser benchmark speedometer on the X211. The X211 got a score of 77.9 on the speedometer 1.1 test and got a score of 42.3 on the speedometer 2.0 test. Once again, as you can tell from this chart, the X211 scores are better than what I got with the Lenovo Duet. Compared to the speedometer scores of my old Asus Chromebook C302 with its Skylake Core M3 processor, and my Pixelbook Go with its Amber Lake Y Series Core i5 processor, though, the X211 with its Snapdragon 7C definitely did score behind those two older Chromebooks. These benchmarks, especially with the speedometer one, can seem a little disappointing and underwhelming. These benchmark scores are very much in line with what we should be expecting here, though. The Snapdragon 7C is an older chip that was announced back in 2019, and it was designed with entry-level laptops in mind. Think of laptops in the $200 to $400 price range. The Snapdragon 7C was meant to be used with those particular laptops. The Snapdragon 7C chip was designed to compete with and outperform that generation's Intel Celeron and Intel Pentium processor. It really wasn't meant to be compared with a Core M3 or a Core i5 or anything higher than that. I've seen comments from people that suggest that the Snapdragon 7C can perform as well as an older Core M3, but I'm just not seeing it here. And frankly, with the benchmark scores that I've gotten, this is very much within the realm of expectation. Having said that, benchmarks aren't everything, and just because we're using an entry-level chip here doesn't mean that we can't get impressive performance out of it. So let's move on to performance that we get in real-life use cases. Real-life performance, having to do with Chromebooks, let's start off with what Chromebooks do best: internet web browsing. Generally speaking, web pages load in a very snappy and fast manner on the HP X211. Zooming in through touchscreen and trackpad both work as they should. As far as basic web browsing goes, I've run into no problems with the HP X211. Next real life use case, YouTube videos. Basically what you're doing right now, watching a YouTube video. And since it comes with a beautiful 2160 by 1440 display, I decided to try to play some YouTube videos on the HP X211 and specifically tried playing a video at 1440p 60. For my test, I used this video from LG titled 2020 LG OLED The Black 4K HDR 60 FPS. I set the quality setting at 1440p 60 and turned on Stats for Nerds here to monitor performance. Unfortunately, I didn't even need to look at the stats to see that the device was struggling to play this video at this setting. Just a lot of delays and obvious frame skips. After doing this test, which came with results that I found to be very disappointing, I decided to play back the same video at 1080p 60 with Stats for Nerds on, just to see how it would perform on the HP X211. At 1080p 60, the playback was much better, and there were no obvious frame skips or delays. According to Stats for Nerds, there were a few dropped frames here and there, but it wasn't enough to disrupt the overall viewing experience of the video here. In case you're curious, I did test out other 1440p 60 videos on YouTube to see if maybe this particular video was just causing a lot of trouble for this device, and unfortunately, I got the same results with every one of them. And to route out the possibility that this was an internet-related issue, I also did the same test on a more powerful device, and it handled this video at 1440p just fine. So this is not an internet-related issue, it's a device issue. This device, which once again comes with a beautiful 2160 by 1440 display, just can't handle 1440p at 60 frames per second content. I mean, if there is a silver lining here, is that the HP X211 is a device that's in a smaller form factor, meaning that 1080p content doesn't look so bad on it. Even then though, I wish I could fully utilize the 1440p display that I have here. As far as Android apps on the HP X211 goes, I haven't had any issues running all the basic stuff. Google-related apps like YouTube and the Calendar app ran without any issues. Other basic apps like AnyMemo as well as the Kindle app also ran without any problems. As far as Android gaming goes, simple games like Crossy Road ran without any issues on the device, but the more intense games like Genshin Impact could only be playable at low to medium graphical settings. I made a separate video on this, so do check it out. To sum it up, the HP X211, as far as running Android apps within Chrome OS goes, does a fairly good job. When compared to an actual Android tablet though, the performance that you get in the HP X211 is just not as good. And that really shows when you look at some of the more graphically intense Android games that are out there. Along with Android apps though, Chromebooks nowadays can run Linux apps, and the HP X211 is no exception. On the HP X211, I installed and ran a few common apps like LibreOffice, Firefox, VLC, Virtual Studio Code, etc., and found that they all could run on the device. Could run being the key phrase here, because could run doesn't necessarily mean that things work as quickly as one might expect. As you can tell from the footage here, even lightweight GUI apps like LibreOffice take a bit of time to load up. So there are issues with running Linux apps on the HP X211. Firstly, the fact that the HP X211 comes with an ARM processor means that the selection of applications, of Linux applications that can be installed on this device is pretty limited. A lot of the common Linux apps like Steam have been made for x86 devices and not ARM devices. This may change in the near future. We'll see how ARM processors develop, but for the time being, this is a limitation. Secondly, and more importantly, how well Linux apps perform on the HP X211 is greatly limited by the device itself. Chrome OS runs Linux in a virtual machine setup, and while there are benefits to doing it in this manner, there is also a lot of overhead when you run apps in this manner. Combine this Chrome OS reality with the realities of the hardware in the HP X211, the entry-level Snapdragon 7C, the relatively slow in comparison to other storages, 64 gigabytes of eMMC storage. Combine these things and it suddenly makes a bit more sense that Linux app performance on this device is not going to be the fastest thing in the world. Don't get me wrong, even with that in mind, these Linux apps are quite usable on the HP X211. The load times and performance can be a bit slow at times, but the experience has been generally stable. For basic Linux apps and maybe some light coding, the HP X211 can handle it. With the basics of the HP X211's performance covered, let's talk a little bit about tablet mode and desktop mode in Chrome OS. For those unaware, Chrome OS has at least two different variations of their user interface. One is the standard desktop mode, which you get on most convertible or clamshell Chromebooks. You get a nice desktop, an app drawer of sorts, and a mouse-clicking friendly UI with desktop mode. The other variation of the Chrome OS user interface is the tablet mode. This one has a supposedly touch-friendly UI and removes the app drawer for some reason. On the HP X211, you can get into desktop mode by either attaching the detachable keyboard to the tablet or by connecting a Bluetooth mouse to it. When a Bluetooth mouse or the detachable keyboard isn't connected to the tablet though, the HP X211 goes into tablet mode. I'm mentioning all of this because how responsive the Chrome OS interface feels on the HP X211 seems to heavily depend on whether you're using tablet mode or desktop mode. To be more specific, when I say responsiveness here, I'm talking about the experience of just opening and closing an app, of switching from one open app to another open app, the experience of switching from one open tab in the web browser to another open tab, going into split screen mode, etc. Simple stuff, I know, but simple stuff that really does define the overall experience you'll have with the device. Desktop mode, perhaps because it has been well optimized to run on low-spec hardware, runs really well on the HP X211. Everything about it is smooth, consistent, and everything just works as you would expect it to. Not to mention that desktop mode handles multitasking very well. Tablet mode, at least on the HP X211, is sort of the exact opposite of the experience I've had with desktop mode on the HP X211. Tablet mode just feels sluggish, inconsistent, and overall not very responsive. Touch input, for example, feels delayed on this device. I've also noticed some lag when switching between apps or when switching between open browser tabs. The gesture navigations used in tablet mode also feel a bit laggy and unintuitive at times. Like, I guess the gestures in Chrome OS tablet mode are similar to the gestures used in Android nowadays, but it's not quite the same. So it gets really confusing when using it. After playing around with desktop mode and tablet mode on the HP X211, and after running experiments where I would run a set number of things in tablet mode and then run the same set of things in desktop mode and compare the overall experience, after doing all that, my general impression is that tablet mode is just more resource intensive than desktop mode. That's my guess behind why there's such a difference between the experience in desktop mode and the experience in tablet mode. To be clear, this doesn't make tablet mode unusable. While the Chrome OS centric stuff, like for example the Chrome web browser, seem to be affected by which mode you're in, things like Android apps are not affected. Android apps and Android games seem to perform the same in both tablet mode and desktop mode. So for using to navigate to some Android apps or for using to do some light web browsing, I would say that Chrome OS's tablet mode is fine. Now I'm going to note that future updates in Chrome OS will surely improve the overall tablet mode experience you can have on the HP X211. I have no doubt about that. But with where we are now, it seems fair to say that Chrome OS's tablet mode is vastly inferior to the tablet interface that you get with iPad OS and Android OS right now. And since the tablet mode touch interface defines the overall tablet experience, I think it is fair to say that the HP X211, as far as being a tablet goes, is miles behind the rest of the tablet competition that exists in the tablet market right now. Chrome OS, at this point in time, just might not be quite ready to take on the tablet market. Well, there's one area where I would argue that the HP X211 actually has a slight edge on the tablet competition right now, and it's in the auto update policy. The HP Chromebook X211 will continue to get updates until June 2029. So there's that. Which leads me to my final thoughts. The HP X211 Chromebook is something that was marketed and labeled as a detachable Chromebook. A device that can both be a good tablet, but with a detachable keyboard attached, be also a good laptop/Chromebook. Almost a best of both world type situation, and on both counts, I would argue the HP X211 has failed. As a tablet, the HP X211 comes short because of the clunky tablet mode UI in Chrome OS. And while desktop mode runs great on this device, I would argue that the HP X211 still comes short as far as being a Chromebook goes because of the questionable quality of the keyboard and the kickstand. And it's a shame because there's a lot that this device got right. The build quality, the amazingly nice looking screen, the fingerprint reader in the power button, the ability to wirelessly charge a USI Pen, the 2 USB-C ports. I mean, these are all areas that other manufacturers either have a tendency to cut out on or have a tendency to cheap out on. HP didn't cut costs on the overall build. It's just in other areas like performance, for example, the HP X211 just comes a bit short. And look, maybe I'm asking too much from a device that comes with a Snapdragon 7C chip. And maybe I am, but in that case, I would argue that this device shouldn't have been a detachable device to begin with. Maybe this device could have been better if it just had been a normal standard clamshell style Chromebook. Now, who is this device for, or who should buy this device? Well, at $599, the MSRP for this device, I would argue no one. Or at least no one who actually cares about, money and whatnot. Look, $599, let's round that up to $600. Once you get into the $600 price range, Chromebook-wise, we're talking about the Pixelbook Go. We're talking about the Acer Spin 713. Those are devices that you can buy in the $600 to $700 price range for spending maybe $50 or $100 more than you would for the HP X211. You can buy yourself a base model Core M3 Pixelbook Go, or you can buy yourself an Acer Spin 713, which comes with, I believe, a Core i5, 8GB of RAM, an actual SSD. Like, we're talking about two Chromebooks that are very premium feeling, that have a very solid build quality, that have really good screens, and that are more powerful than the HP X211. And tablet-wise, $600 is where we start talking about the iPad Air, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 or S7 Plus, the new iPad mini. You can buy the new iPad mini with 256GB of storage right now for $649.99 at Best Buy. Like, for spending $50 more than you would for the HP X211 at MSRP, you can get yourself a new iPad mini with a pretty good amount of storage. And once again, from my perspective, those tablets are much better at being tablets than the HP X211 is, and on top of that, they perform a lot better in mobile apps than the HP X211 does. It makes no sense, whether Chromebook-wise or tablet-wise, to go with the HP X211 at MSRP. It just doesn't. And moreover, partially because I've done this comparison with tablets and Chromebooks, I can say that the HP X2 shouldn't even cost $600 to begin with. Like, I don't really know what they were thinking when HP priced it at $600. Now you might say, Joe, what if the HP X2 is on sale at Best Buy for $399 or $379? Even if it's on sale, I still wouldn't recommend that a majority of people buy the HP X2. The only people who should look at the HP X2 at the sale price are people who are dead set on getting a Chrome OS tablet and basically know what they're getting into. Lenovo Duet owners, for example, who are considering an upgrade and are insistent on sticking with Chrome OS should definitely consider the HP X2 at the sale price of $399 or $379. And I say this because despite all of my grievances, the HP X2 is still an upgrade when compared to the Lenovo Duet. As for everyone else who isn't insisting on getting a Chrome OS tablet, there are decent tablets, even at the $399 to $379 price range, that I think will better suit your tablet needs than the HP X2 can. Also, there are Chromebooks at the $379 to $399 price range that I would argue have a more satisfying keyboard than the HP X2 and have more powerful specs. So unless you're dead set on getting a Chrome OS tablet, I find it very difficult to recommend the HP X2 overall. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you found this video helpful or informative in some way, shape, or form, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a like. Thanks for watching the video.